With winter on the horizon and the likelihood of snowstorms looming, it's essential to start thinking about ways to safeguard your plants and crops from the harsh, cold weather. Picture this. You wake up on a frigid morning to find your greenhouse transformed into an icy wasteland. The power's been out for hours, and without heat, your crops, months of dedication and effort, have become withered and lifeless in a matter of hours. All that hard work gone in an instant. So, how do you shield your plants from winter's harshest conditions? The answer lies in a time-tested approach drawn from Amish wisdom. While many of us are searching online for the latest tricks to insulate greenhouses, the Amish have been honing methods that rely on natural heat sources like the sun, compost, and a few simple materials. What's truly fascinating isn't just that they succeed, it's how they do it. Get ready, or maybe harness up, if we're staying true to tradition, as we dive into how Amish farmers work alongside nature rather than against it, keeping their crops flourishing even when it's freezing outside. So, what's the Amish secret for heating a greenhouse without electricity? They turn to an age-old energy source, the sun. No electric bills, no wiring, just pure solar power that's been warming the earth for billions of years. The Amish understand this well, and they've mastered the art of harnessing the sun's energy to its fullest potential. Let's start with a crucial aspect: placement. The Amish don't just set up their greenhouses randomly. They understand that sunlight is essential and strategically position their greenhouses to face south, maximizing exposure to the sun's rays throughout the day. This is called passive solar heating, taking advantage of the sun's natural warmth without using machines. You should aim to do the same if you want to heat your greenhouse effectively. Now, you might be wondering, sure, the sun's great, but what about in the depths of winter when daylight is scarce? That's where greenhouse design comes into play. The Amish don't only rely on direct sunlight, they build their greenhouses with materials that retain heat. Imagine it like wearing a good winter coat that keeps you warm long after you've stepped out into the cold. Most Amish greenhouses are constructed from materials like glass or transparent plastic that let in sunlight while capturing and retaining the warmth. During the day, sunlight hits the ground, plants, pots, and other items inside, which absorb the heat. This process is a lot like leaving your car parked in the sun and returning to find it feels like a mini sauna. With this clever design, a well-positioned solar-friendly greenhouse can cut heating costs by up to 50%, even in chilly climates. If only getting a discount on car insurance were this straightforward. When planning your greenhouse, try to make the most of every bit of sunlight, much like the Amish do. They often include angled roofs to catch more rays and double-layered walls to trap heat, creating a greenhouse that functions almost like a solar oven. This approach ensures that even on the darkest winter days, your plants are still soaking up as much sunlight as possible. It's not just about sunny days either. Even on overcast days, Amish greenhouses are designed to gather what little sunlight is available and make the most of it. You don't need full sun to keep things warm. Even a bit of light can go a long way when your greenhouse is designed to capture every photon. The Amish have perfected this approach, so next time you see the sun breaking through clouds, ask yourself, how can I make this light work for me? The answer is simple. Build smarter, not harder. And yes, wear sunscreen. Next up in the Amish toolkit for efficient, electricity-free greenhouse heating is a concept called thermal mass. Don't let the term scare you. Think of it as a clever way to store heat. Thermal mass refers to materials like water, stone, or bricks that absorb warmth during the day and release it gradually at night when temperatures drop. It's like having the most patient heating system in the world. Imagine it like preheating an oven. Once you turn it off, it stays warm for a while. Except here, it's your greenhouse that remains warm, though unfortunately no cookies are involved. The Amish are experts in this method. By filling their greenhouses with heat-storing materials like stone floors, brick walls, and even barrels of water, they create what is essentially a battery that charges during the day and keeps things warm overnight. As nighttime temperatures plunge, certain methods can help keep your plants warm even as the world outside chills. Think of it like giving your greenhouse an unplugged heated blanket. Here's an Amish tip. Water is one of the best materials for holding thermal mass. With its high heat capacity, water can soak up a significant amount of warmth without overheating quickly. Take a page from the Amish playbook. and line the inside of your greenhouse with barrels of water to capture and gradually release heat. Consider these barrels as mini heat reserves. A single 55-gallon water barrel can retain enough warmth to keep a small greenhouse comfortable through a frosty night. Not bad for something as simple as water. Besides water, other dense materials like stone or brick can be effective. These materials absorb warmth from the sun throughout the day and release it slowly as night falls. Walk into an Amish greenhouse, and you'll often find stone paths or thick, dark bricks lining the walls, not just for decoration, but because these materials play a crucial role in stabilizing temperatures, like a dependable grandparent for greenhouse heating. Did you know that each square foot of thermal mass can cut down the need for additional heating by as much as 15%? In a world where heating costs often reach uncomfortable heights, that's a budget-friendly solution. But remember, not just any material will do. For effective thermal mass, you need materials that can absorb plenty of heat during the day and release it gradually overnight. Darker colors are ideal since they absorb more sunlight. Think of it like how your black t-shirt gets much warmer than a white one on a sunny day. So, like the Amish, choose dark stones, bricks, or even large dark clay pots. These not only enhance the greenhouse's aesthetic, but help maintain a steady temperature inside. Thermal mass is like that friend who hoards all the blankets, only to end up sharing the warmth with everyone. The stones and water barrels soak up heat by day, then generously spread it through the chilly night. Next time you think about heating your greenhouse, consider letting your stones and water barrels do the heavy lifting. It's efficient, eco-friendly, and most importantly, effective. Another natural heating method the Amish use is composting. If you're picturing piles of smelly, decomposing waste, think again. With the right approach, composting can be an efficient, sustainable heat source, and it's a fantastic way to recycle. Compost produces warmth as it decomposes. Imagine it like a slow, smouldering bonfire in a pile of plant matter, except there's no need for matches. A well-maintained compost pile can reach temperatures of up to 160 degrees Fahrenheit, which is hotter than a typical cup of tea. The Amish have found that strategically placing compost piles around or even inside a greenhouse can generate enough warmth to maintain a comfortable temperature for plants. But there's a trick to it. You can't just throw any old scraps into a pile and expect it to heat your greenhouse. Composting requires the right balance, something the Amish have perfected. The ideal compost mix includes greens, like kitchen scraps and fresh grass, and browns, such as dry leaves and straw. This balance creates the optimal environment for microbes to break down the organic matter, releasing heat in the process and helping keep the greenhouse warm. It's like having an army of tiny, dedicated workers creating warmth around the clock. As winter approaches and temperatures drop, keeping your greenhouse warm can become a real challenge. One effective strategy the Amish employ is arranging compost piles around the perimeter of their greenhouses. These piles act as natural heat sources, gradually releasing warmth as the material decomposes. You can even take it up a notch by setting up compost bins inside your greenhouse, which lets the plants receive warmth directly from the composting process, like having an eco-friendly heater built right into the space. And don't worry about unpleasant smells. A well-managed compost pile should have an earthy, natural scent. If you're noticing any odor, it's a sign that something needs adjusting. To keep compost fresh, turn it regularly to aerate the pile, which will also speed up decomposition. The Amish make this a routine part of maintaining their greenhouses. Compost piles aren't only useful for heating greenhouses. Some clever gardeners have used compost to heat water for outdoor showers or to warm outdoor seating areas. Imagine being able to tell friends that your greenhouse stays cozy thanks to vegetable scraps. Whether you're a passionate gardener or simply want to recycle food waste effectively, composting offers an efficient way to heat your greenhouse. Plus, once the compost fully breaks down, you're left with nutrient-rich soil, perfect for your plants. It's truly a win-win. Warmth and natural fertilizer, all from Mother Nature. And yes, it makes for an interesting conversation starter. Did I mention my greenhouse is heated by compost? Let's be real. No one enjoys a cold draft, and that goes for plants too. The Amish understand this and employ windbreaks and insulation as key components in their greenhouse heating strategy. If you've ever been in an old house on a windy night, you know how a draft can chill you to the bone. The same goes for greenhouses, where keeping cold air out is as crucial as trapping heat inside. Windbreaks are the Amish's first line of defense against icy gusts. Instead of relying on electrical heaters, they use nature, trees, shrubs and hedges planted around their greenhouses to act as windshields. It's like having a natural fence that also enhances the landscape. And yes, strategically planted trees and shrubs can make a big difference. Studies show that a well-placed windbreak can reduce wind speed by up to 50%, significantly lowering heat loss in a greenhouse. A windbreak also creates a mini-climate, where temperatures around the greenhouse stay a bit higher than in open areas, providing a cozy buffer against harsh winter winds. Once windbreaks are in place, the next step is insulation. The Amish approach this with simplicity and effectiveness. For example, in winter, they stack straw bales around the greenhouse base to create an insulating barrier. Straw may not be high-tech, but it's highly effective at keeping the cold out and warmth in. The air pockets within straw make it a fantastic insulator, and when you stack those bales around your greenhouse, you essentially build a wall against the chill. It's affordable, easy to set up, and once winter is over, the straw can be composted. For added insulation, you can use wool or even old blankets to cover areas that lose heat quickly. Some Amish farmers also line the inside of their greenhouses with plastic sheeting. While plastic may not seem traditional, it's practical. You'll often see clear plastic stretched over frames or double layers used to create an insulating air pocket, like a makeshift thermos. It's similar to using bubble wrap on your windows in winter. Another clever tactic the Amish employ is the use of dark-colored materials inside the greenhouse. Dark surfaces absorb more sunlight during the day and then release heat into the air after sunset. So, while you're bundling up in multiple layers to keep warm, your greenhouse remains cozy with this simple yet effective setup of windbreaks, insulation, and heat-absorbing materials. A windbreak of trees that also serves as a natural fence, along with straw insulation. Who wouldn't want that? It's like nature's own heating system, and it doesn't require a single watt of electricity. Next time you're dealing with a drafty greenhouse or home, consider adding some greenery for wind protection, insulating with straw, and letting nature keep things warm. When it comes to keeping greenhouses productive in the winter, the Amish don't rely only on heating tricks or compost piles. Sometimes the smartest approach is to grow cold-tolerant crops that can thrive despite winter's chill. Think of it like assembling a sports team. You wouldn't send a lightweight player to tackle a linebacker, right? The same idea applies to plants. When the cold months hit, the Amish don't leave their crops to struggle. They choose hardy, cold-weather plants that can endure winter's chill. Think of these as the tough guys of the plant world, like the Clint Eastwoods of the garden. Nothing phases them. Spinach, kale, carrots, and beets are some of the most common winter crops you'll find in Amish greenhouses. These aren't the delicate summer tomatoes that wilt at the first sign of frost. These are crops that stand up to the cold and keep growing, and plants have their own frost defenses. Known as frost tolerance, this internal mechanism makes certain plants more resistant to cold. Kale, for instance, actually becomes sweeter after a light frost, as it converts starches into sugar to protect itself. So, while winter's chill might discourage you from venturing outdoors, the Amish are harvesting even tastier kale all season long. It's not just about choosing frost-resistant plants and hoping for the best. Another Amish technique you can adopt is succession planting, staggering planting times so crops are ready to harvest at different intervals. This ensures a steady supply of fresh produce even during the cold months. Think of it as stacking up your firewood before winter. You wouldn't want to be scrambling for logs in January, right? Succession planting means there's always something fresh coming up, keeping the greenhouse productive and the pantry stocked. The Amish also have a secret weapon when it comes to natural greenhouse heating, cold frames and hot beds. These low-tech methods are incredibly effective for keeping plants warm without the need for expensive heating systems. When a cold frame is placed over a hot bed, you get maximum heat retention. A hotbed warms the soil from below, while the cold frame captures sunlight and shields plants from the chilly air above. Cold frames are like mini greenhouses that trap warmth around your plants, and they're easy to make. All you need is a wooden or metal frame with a clear cover made of glass or plastic. Sunlight warms the inside during the day, and that heat stays put at night, maintaining a stable environment for your crops. Building a cold frame at home is simple. Some wood for the frame and an old window or sheet of plastic for the top. Position the cold frame in a sunny spot, ideally on the south side of your greenhouse or garden, and you'll have a cozy space for winter greens like spinach, lettuce and herbs. For added insulation, you can stack straw bales along the sides of the frame. By creating this protected microclimate, you allow plants to thrive in colder months without needing any extra resources. Hotbeds, on the other hand, use the natural heat from decomposition to warm the soil. This age-old technique is perfect for anyone wanting an organic heating solution. To create a hotbed, dig a trench about 1 foot or 2 deep and layer it with manure or compost. Horse manure is especially effective since it produces a lot of heat. Cover this layer with soil, and as the manure breaks down, it warms the ground, creating an ideal environment for plants. This method is especially useful for early spring or late fall planting, extending the growing season. Plus, as the manure decomposes, it enriches the soil with nutrients, acting as a slow-release fertilizer. It's a 2-for-1 deal: warmth for your plants and nutrient-dense soil. By combining cold frames and hotbeds, the Amish harness sunlight and organic decomposition to create a naturally warm, thriving space for plants. One of the key values in Amish farming is sustainability. Did you know that over 90% of Amish farms are still family-owned and operated? For the Amish, it's not about being eco-friendly for its own sake. It's about following practices that have worked for generations. They aren't subscribing to sustainability magazines or watching documentaries on climate change. They're just living sustainably because it's part of who they are. They perfected heating a greenhouse without electricity long ago, and the system still works like a charm. While many are now embracing minimalism as a lifestyle trend, the Amish have lived it for centuries. Their lives are built on simplicity, not the all-beige, tiny house simplicity, but a way of life that values making do with what's available, using it wisely and wasting nothing. Their greenhouses are often made of sturdy wood and glass, requiring minimal maintenance and lasting for years. Instead of plugging into the electrical grid, they rely on natural resources like sunlight, wind, and yes, even manure. They've developed a heating system that's both efficient and straightforward. This approach to using what they have is kind of like fixing something around the house with duct tape, except the Amish have refined this resourcefulness over hundreds of years. They're not cutting corners. They're just using their heads and a bit of elbow grease. While many of us are working on reducing our carbon footprints, the Amish are practically carbon neutral already without needing to brag about it online. The Amish warm their greenhouses the same way they approach everything else: simple, sustainable, and effective. Heating a greenhouse without electricity might sound like something out of an old survival guide, but the Amish show that it's entirely possible. The secret is to work with nature rather than against it. Maximize sunlight, stack thermal mass strategically, and use compost piles as natural heaters. The Amish prove that you don't need fancy tech to keep your greenhouse comfortable, just a bit of knowledge and creativity. So, as winter approaches, take a page from the Amish Greenhouse Handbook. With these straightforward techniques, you can keep your plants cozy, your greenhouse productive, and your energy costs low. In fact, it might even be better than high-tech methods. No electricity means no bills.